Hello, everyone. Welcome to another amazing episode of Inspired Action, where we dive into the most pressing leadership challenges and hope to inspire you to take a more coach-centered and people-focused approach to leadership. I'm your host, Kyle Pertuis, and it's time to get started with our three amazing guests for today. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the newest episode of Inspired Action. I'm your host, Kyle Pertuis, and I'm here with three amazing guests today to answer this question. What moment reminded you that leadership isn't about performance? It's all about people. I'm so excited to have these three and looking forward to their responses to this question. But first, let me do a quick introduction. First of all, Samantha Coleman, currently serving as Director of Leadership or Learning and Development for the Center of Healthcare Services. She brings over a decade of experience in the public sector, specializing in partnership building, leadership, training, and education. Next, Angelova. She's a business coach and consultant, founder at Leficomp, and host of the podcast Building a Business, Grit and Grace. She and her team help new founders build visionary businesses that thrive with clear plans, consistent sales, and strong finances. And last but not least, Jason Kulchar. Jason is the founder of the Kulchar Shift, where he partners with organizations to cultivate leadership cultures grounded in trust, humility, and purpose, aligning people, strategy, and execution. He's a recently retired Air Force veteran. Thank you for your service. With over 24 years of service, he's also the forthcoming author of Lines in a Parking Lot, Leadership Lessons Fueled by Positivity, Humility, and Turning the Right Way. All right. Samantha was the one that drew the short end of the stick. Actually, she just agreed to go first. So, Sam, here is the question for you to take away. What moment reminded you that leadership isn't about performance? It's really about people.
And we chatted just before we came on, Kyle, that this was actually a difficult question for me to think of a specific incident. As you'd mentioned, with my background, I've been in nonprofits and focusing in mental health, but child sexual abuse, trafficking, trauma-informed systems has been my career. And so I don't know if it's because I've always worked in human services and I've seen just people experiencing all stages of life at all levels of our society. But I can't remember a specific moment of not being people-centered. Performance plays a key role in our job as leaders. It's our job to motivate our people to do their best performance, but people are at the heart of everything we do. Whether it's banking, hospice, computer science, everything contributes one way or another back to society, back to humankind. So I really had to kind of search back in the vault and think about scenarios. And one instance that stood out for me was my personal experience early in my career, just realizing that not all agencies or leaders will value people over performance. So I was working early in my career, job I loved, for a supervisor I adored. And this supervisor had a long-term illness and eventually passed. So it was a time of extreme emotional stress, work stress. I'm gung ho, I'm young, I want to be superwoman, I want to cover all the duties, I want to do their job, I want to do my job so that they're not having to worry about anything while they're going through this, fill this gap for my agency, etc. And instead of looking back, instead of support, that I got from my agency, it was more brought up everything I wasn't doing, even things I was trying to fill in, mistakes I was making on things I hadn't been trained for. And I don't fault them. We do the best we have with what we have and the things we know at the time. But that moment really crystallized for me the kind of leader I wanted to be and the power of simply asking someone, how are you doing? Checking in without a motive related to performance. And it's something I've tried to carry along just throughout my career, even in teams. We've got so many methods of connection and communication these days. So I'll send little messages out to my team saying, hey, happy Monday. How are we meeting you today? And we rank it, or put in the chat, what emoji are you feeling today? And then we get an idea of where's the team morale at, where's the team. And it's if we've ranked it, for example, of like, I'm on the struggle bus and it's all anonymous. I'm on the struggle bus, or I'm really thriving today. We can see as a team okay, some of our people need our support today. We need a little bit of extra oomph.
Yeah, I love that in the answer to that question, you were the people that weren't being people focused, right? Because it was the nitpicking of the let's find what's wrong instead of let's look for what's right during this time and help this person and support this person who's apparently taking maybe on more than what she's expected to. Yeah. Let's jump over. Anna, what would you add to that? What do you remember just from your perspective, a moment maybe that reminded you that leadership really may not always be about performance, but about people?
I'll actually continue what Sam was saying. I also can't pinpoint like a single moment. I was fortunate enough to experience early in my career the two extremes in a way. And like with one extreme, I personally had a manager who, without asking me, he kind of demoted me from being a business analyst to being a QA analyst, testing clicks. It's like something I hadn't done even in the beginning of my career. But he didn't ask me. He needed, from performance perspective, he needed a QA on his team, and he was like, "You are it. You have experience. I don't care like where you are, what's going on." And you wouldn't be surprised to learn that I actually left this team. The first opportunity that came less than 6 months when this happened, I left this team, and I was fortunate enough to work with the best manager after that I've ever had. And I found out later that she was a graduate IPEC certified coach, and one thing that she was doing is every time I would go to her with problems, you were thinking like in terms of efficiency that she should give me the answer and task done, that's it. But what happened is that she was actually answering my questions with questions, allowing me to learn and grow and become a better business analyst in the team and start managing my projects and my teams better. And in the short term, it might be inefficient, but in the long term, it really helped me grow. And seeing these examples like allowed me to focus really on people as a leader myself. And also, I would add that I'm a lifelong learner, so books and continuing to learn about leadership and management as well. And for me, performance falls more into management. Management is focused on tasks and efficiencies and timelines. Leadership is all about people, vision, and culture. And the best managers and leaders, they combine both. And when you were starting, like 95% of your job and the 95% of my job was tasks and things like this, but there was that 5% of caring about the person, like making sure that I create an environment that where they can thrive. And of course, as I grow, more of my focus is on the people, culture, and vision, and less is on the management part. But we definitely need both. And when we have even 5% of focus on people, the results follow.
I love it. Yeah. I had a guy tell me once, leadership is not a spreadsheet, it's a heartbeat. Right. And I think that's the sentiment that you were certainly sharing there. All right, Jason, bring it home for us.
Yeah,
What?
no. So first, thanks for having me, and I love this question, and so I just loved when this question came through that I was going to be able to be a part of this panel with these other amazing professionals. For me, the moment started with literally a parking lot about 10 years ago. I had stepped into command of an organization. It was a high performing organization, and unfortunately, my boss had been removed from her position. We had 1,000 people, and initially, like I was focused metrics, priorities, proving that I could lead this large organization into the future. And so I had town halls, and I shared my vision, I shared my values, the direction I wanted to go. And at the very end, I asked, "What can I do for you?" And in one of the early meetings, one of the students stood up and said, "Can you get us lines in a parking lot?" And I laughed. I was like, "Is this for real?" And then somebody else said, "Yes, lines in a parking lot is all we need." And he explained that every morning they would get to class at 6:30. It was West Texas. It was the winter. The sun hadn't come up yet. And when they came out at lunchtime, it was everybody was parked all over the place. It was chaos. And some could not leave for lunch. And I made a few calls, sent a couple emails, and then like 10 days later, they had fresh, bright white lines painted in the parking lots. And for months, students would come up to me and thank me. And I still hadn't grasped the whole like idea that this was a really big thing until about 2 years later. I was in the Middle East visiting a different team, and somebody came up to me and was like, "You're probably not going to remember me, but I was one of the people that wanted those lines, and you got it." And it's literally the example that I use, uh, talking about what a leader should do. And then that's when it clicked for me that leadership isn't about the fancy speeches, the strategies, or the reports that you do. It's really about listening, taking action, and showing people they matter. And as a leader, it's about solving the problems that your people want you to solve, not necessarily the problems that you think you should solve. And so those painted lines for me became more than just parking spaces. They really became a reminder that just the small acts of care really do build the big trust. And that's what leadership is all about.
Yeah, I love it. And then again, another short plug here with the name that you just so eloquently illustrated how that all came about in the upcoming book in 2026. Well, you guys, I think just some really, really great insight there. And I think for me, I'm going to try to summarize this, even in as brief of a conversation as it was. But I think the strongest leaders really remember that connection isn't the opposite of performance. It's probably the main driver or the engine of it. What what do you want your team, your people, if you're not, directly leading a bunch of people right now, or even if you are, what do you want people to feel when they see your name pop up on their phone?
That he cares,
That you
that,
care.
that I care, that, I'm reaching out either for, to check on them because I haven't talked to them in a while. Maybe they're not on my team, or maybe they are on my team and they know that I'm reaching out for the right reasons and because I care, and either about them or about moving the organization forward in the right way.
Yeah, and I think all too often you see those scenarios where people don't want to answer because they think they're getting checked up on or followed up on or something didn't go right or whatever it is. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I
Sam,
agree. I agree
go
with
ahead.
that. I think too many times I've used the example of if the only time you see the principal is when you're in trouble. And I think it's the same with leadership. And so I work really hard to normalize my presence in different places. So kind of walking by to the teams area, and it's not to, hey, is this ready? It's, deadlines or anything like that, but just to, do some jokes. How are we doing? And then I think opportunity as well. I remember, the people I've worked with, and I keep, even 10 years after the fact, I will email or send a text saying, hey, I saw this opportunity and I thought of you. So it's been nice kind of getting to this point in my career, and they say that leaders grow more leaders. And so
Mhm.
trying to invest back in and do that, I think really comes through.
I love that you use the the principal's office example. I saved it. I haven't watched it in its entirety, but I just came across this video of a principal somewhere. I don't even remember where it was, who had a goal of not ever wanting people to have to come to his office, right? Because the perception is, well, you have to go to the principal's office. Something's going on. So he manages his school from a rolling cart.
Mm.
Like he literally doesn't have a principal's office. He is in the hallways. He's in the classrooms. And I'm like, that is brilliant, in so many different respects. Anna, what would you add?
It's actually a very interesting question because if I'm thinking about if I saw my manager calling me, what my reaction would be, and it would be what's wrong. Like the first thing would be
Mhm.
even with the best of them because it's not really normal.
Yeah.
So I definitely love for people to feel excited when they see my name, whatever the reason is. And like one of the things I think about talking about like focusing on people, like I make sure to put reminders and have information that's like it's someone's like the other day was the birth one of like someone's daughter. She turned 9 the other day, and I called her on her cell to say happy birthday for her daughter. And like just like situations like this, like normalizing this kind of interaction that yes, like in some ways I might be the manager or the leader, but we are still people, and having that connection and that excitement to see that, oh, she's calling. And yes, it might not be with good news all the time. Like, fires erupt from time to time. The word that came to my mind was excitement.
I like it. We use a variation, and now that I've asked this question, we use a variation of this in some of the trainings that we do, where we'll try to illustrate the difference between positive or negative energy, right? And so when you think about somebody that's you've got a relationship with that you just haven't seen in months or years, but then you're gonna have an opportunity to get back together with them, and you can just pick up like there was no time ever that lapsed between you. And how does that make you feel when their name pops up on your phone? And of course, we get excited. And it's like, oh, I can't wait to see you, and all of those kind of emotions. And then on the flip side of that is now think about somebody that sucks the ever living life out of you. And when their name pops up on the phone, how do you respond? Right. And that reminded me of an experience that occurred. We had just had our first child, probably wasn't even 3-4 months old. And this was in a previous partnership years and years ago. And I can vividly remember we were at this downtown festival, and I looked up and I saw my partners walking into a building across the way from where we were, probably 400 or 500 yards, crowded people, but I saw them going in and they hadn't seen the baby yet. So I picked up my phone and called it, and I will kid you not, I watched him pick up his phone, look at it, and stick it back in his pocket. Now, this was towards the end of my partnership, but it affirmed a lot of the things that I was really thinking about before I made that exit. But I think it's just such a powerful thing to think about. If we can have the awareness and the intent behind how do we want to show up on people's phones, we know we can manage the situation when we're in front of people, right? Or we believe we can. But when it's just showing up on a digital device, what's the thought? Because we've done so many things along the way that they understand that connection is true enough to say, yeah, I'm excited when Anna calls, right? I know that if Jason's calling, it's because he cares about something. I know that when Sam calls, she's probably just going to crack a joke and make me smile because she knew I was down in the meeting earlier, right? I think those are the things that it's so easy to overlook and take for granted. But I think that's a big piece of leadership, is understanding that we don't necessarily have the power of making people feel a certain way, but we can sure do what we can to create an environment where that exists when we're around, right?
Mhm.
And that's their opportunity to choose. I'm going to throw one more in there if you guys are game, because I'm curious, and we talked kind of in different pieces about this, but what's one way you feel like you can measure success that really includes the human experience, not just output, right? When we think about performance, but how can we measure success from the standpoint of a human experience? And Sam, you alluded to this in the first question a little bit about how, the emojis or whatever, and you said something about, if we're measuring it. And I think you were talking about if we're measuring the climate of the team or the energy, right? So what do you guys think? One way we can measure success that includes the human experience.
All right, I'll jump in.
Okay,
Too
do
much
it.
time. So I would like, I mean, it goes back to kind of, what Sam was saying, right? Like the cracking jokes. And I'm a big believer in that you can measure success on your team based off of the smiles that you get on the screen, or the smiles that you get on when you're together. And, do they answer the phone, or, do they read your text with a read receipt and don't respond back? But, I think that smiling and the fact that people want to join your team, or people on other people's teams want to do what they can to join your team.
Yeah. Yeah. The body language tells a lot of cues, doesn't it?
And what came to my mind in addition to this is actually, you know how we have TGIF. So when you actually have people who are excited for Monday morning,
I love it.
Instead of dreading it and being, oh, it's Monday again. And coupled with, for me also, it's coupled with how long people stay with your team. Like this is one thing that, like, when the environment is not good, like, people leave, they come and go. But when you have something special and people love it, when you find the right people in the right places, like, they can stay with you for years and even decades. So I'd say these two things, actually measuring it with the happiness on Monday morning and also how long people stay with you.
I love it. I can see the TGIM t-shirts now.
If you get to that, Anna, please let me know how you did it.
Okay.
Yeah, let's know the
I
secret.
think even under the best circumstances, people are still like, Monday. But yeah, trying to make it, we spend so much time at work that it should be, for the most part, a pleasant environment. There's going to be things we don't want to do, and as leaders, we try to mitigate, but we're still held that accountability. And so it's kind of measuring and balancing both of those things of, hey, probably we may not have met if we both weren't hired for this job. And I think I've moved away more in my career and journey up from, we're a work family. To me, that's kind of a yellow flag. I think it works some places, but realistically, we're not. And I think it sets up an unfair expectation. And I'm not going to act with you the way I act with my family, and you should not want me to. If the agency is not paying you or me to be here, we're probably not going to show up just to hang out. Like we're going to go somewhere else. We're brought together by a common mission and a goal, and we can be a great team, but we're not a family, and we need to keep that in mind. And so I think expectations, making sure those expectations are clear, also adds back into, because they're even just looking, like it's looking for those cues in your leader of, okay, are they going to follow through on this? Is it, consistency goes a long way. And so I think a lot of it can be measured with time. All the examples, Jason, Anna, that you said, definitely. And then even, years later, I've, like Jason mentioned, I'd left teams before where I'm like, they don't want me here, or I'm feel like just the bad guy, or I'm not having the impact I want. And then I'll leave for another opportunity. And then come to find out that it's like, oh, why did you, like, we didn't want you to leave. And I'm like, well, why didn't you tell me that before? And so I've tried to look at, and it goes back to that age old, give people flowers while they're alive, right? Like, don't wait, until something happens, and then we're all the truth comes out. And so I've been trying to be very intentional, especially with new teams, of building in opportunities for community and for us to make memories, and not to like, we're going to eat together every day, or I'm going to make you have a buddy system or this. We did an activity. There was some tension on a team I was on. And so we did a simple activity of half sheet of paper with each team member's name on it. And we passed it around, and everyone had to put something that they admired or appreciated about that person. And I included myself and their manager, because I was like, we need a boost too. And so afterwards, and it's anonymous. And so you're looking at that and you're like, okay, so they see me, and I'm looking, I have mine up, and it said always in a positive mood. And I'm like, really? All right. Supportive and helpful, appreciate your compassion and active listening. You create a safe space. And it's like, okay, I didn't see that in myself, that I was creating that, but that is something I've worked towards. And everyone gets to leave with that little thing of like, okay, maybe I do belong here. Or instead of thinking like our brains are programmed for everything we do wrong or where we're lacking.
Yeah. I love it. I love that. All right, you guys, I'm going to summarize this piece with a few things. Make sure you've got lines in your parking lot. Give flowers to the living. And if you want your TGIM t-shirt, you need to get a hold of Anna. All right. Thank y'all so much for your insight and input and your time. Great episode. Everybody out there, keep watching. Remember, new episodes drop every Thursday at noon Central on LinkedIn, and almost anytime on our YouTube channel at MindFit Coaching. Thanks for watching. That's a wrap for another edition of Inspired Action, the Leadership Forecast. We're so grateful for our guests today and the impact they're making with the work they do. Be sure to check out our YouTube channel to watch the longer version of this episode, and be sure to like, comment, connect with, and follow me and each of our guests. You'll find all of our links in the caption of this video. Thanks for watching, and be sure to tune in every Thursday at noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern for new episodes.